Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio. We've got massive troop buildup over inside of the Middle East. I started digging into it a little bit more this morning, and I'll tell you guys, the more I look, the more troubled I started to get. I know we've been talking about the B-2 bombers being moved down into Diego Garcia. I know we've been talking about the strike carrier groups over in the Red Sea. We've been talking about all of these things. But there was some more key elements that I saw moving into position today that I saw fit to, I think, just actually start bringing it up and talk to you guys about, because we've got new troop buildups as well, not just by the United States government, but also by Egypt. And it looks like Russia is finally being overt in coming out and saying that, USA, and it doesn't look like it, they are being overt. They're being 100% overt with it, warning the USA now not to strike Iran. They came out and they just flat out said it. We are about, how do I want to put this? We are just a few steps away, in my opinion, from going right back to frickin', like 1967. And I'm not making this up. I can't possibly be doing it. I've been wondering for the life of me why the USA hasn't been going in, or I'm not the USA, but why Israel hasn't been actually taking a hammer over to Gaza. And I think it's finally becoming very, very clear. The longer that we sit here, the longer we do this, the more and more clear it becomes. So I'm going to put this up on the screen, and I'm going to let you guys listen to it. It's an Israeli, this is from I-24 News. This is an Israeli official. He came out yesterday talking about the militarization over inside of the Sinai Peninsula, the troop buildup of Egyptian forces over in the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt's now saying that they are in direct violation of the freaking peace agreement and is expecting the United States government in order to enforce it. And we've got enough assets over in the area now that it looks like that's going to happen.
Stark warning that we're hearing today from a senior Israeli defense official, and he is speaking about the deployment of the military forces of Egypt at the Sinai Peninsula. And I can remind you and the viewers that under the 1979 peace accords between Israel and Egypt, the military presence of Egypt in Sinai is supposed to be very limited, but that in recent years is not the case. We're hearing from this official who tells us Egypt is militarizing the Sinai Peninsula in what seems as a violation of the peace agreement, and he is specifying those violations. He says Egypt has deployed military forces beyond the permitted quota, expanded port docks, and extended runways at airports, all of these in violation of the agreement. Now,
so you guys see this, right? Like, I'm not crazy here. So we've got them moving all of them in. Now, this is, like, to me, this is something that we need to talk about just up front and foremost, because there has been a lot of stuff that has been happening over inside of Gaza that people have been like, well, how the hell has that been going on? Right. And so last year, you guys will remember now, one of the very first places, and again, Israel they just dropped the freaking leaflets, what is it, yesterday, and told the people to get the heck out of Dodge and to get out of Rafah. Right. And there is a lot of BS and propaganda. And if you're just kind of new to this and you're wondering what's going on, you have, like currently around the Middle East, I guess, to kind of explain this stuff. And people need to understand that it's about history. Right? Like, when you look at this stuff, it's not about history to the United States of America, because Americans, truthfully, we could care less. But when it goes to a war about being sparked off and the amount of U.S. military assets that are deployed to the region, new ones that just got deployed, it's being rumored right now that we have B-1 Lancers that are on their way down to Diego Garcia. Now, that's a bigger issue, because now we have stealth, like, in addition to the freaking B-2s, now we got Lancers that are on their way over there. Those have a massive strike capability, right? And in addition to that, we've got, looks like, 2 strike carrier groups that are on their way over to the Red Sea, along with, no shit, A-10 Warthogs that just got deployed to CENTCOM AOR over the last weekend. So now we've got additional Warthogs being flown in. Everybody's been asking, where's the A-10s? Where are the A-10s? Dude, we just sent them. Literally, I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit. We just sent the A-10s over there. And so it's important for you guys to understand all of this stuff, and I'm going to list it out for you, of all of the crap that we have over in the Middle East. But first, to give a really quick, brief rundown on what the heck's going on. Iran has been supplying all of its little proxy forces throughout the Middle East. It's how Iran projects itself around the Middle East. So over inside of Lebanon, they have Hezbollah, and Lebanon obviously shares the border with Israel. Over inside Syria, the IRGC, all right, little military wing that is labeled as a foreign terror organization by the United States of America of Iran, all right, has been operating inside of Syria for a very long time as well. Down inside Yemen, you have the Houthis. Over inside Gaza, you have Hamas, right, that Israel has been fighting with. Over in the West Bank, you have the PIJ. And these people are like everywhere. More so when we get into Israel and we start talking about why Egypt is building up forces down there. Egypt was pissed when Israel went into Rafah last year. And they've been enforcing this border ever since like the 6-Day War back in like 1967. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Egypt, all of the freaking countries surrounding Israel, got in a big freaking fight. Israel whipped the shit out of them. And then they've essentially had these kind of borders set into place for a very long time. Part of the land that was taken back then by Israel from Egypt was Gaza. I'll say that again. Part of the land that was taken by Israel back then from Egypt was Gaza. Israel attempted to give it back. Egypt didn't take it. That's why we're at where we are at. Now, currently, over the last, currently, there is new Egyptian tank troop buildup, etc., over inside of the Sinai Peninsula. And that's not new. That's been going on for like the last year. They've been building up over inside the Sinai. They have. They put additional troops, etc. And we all looked at this and we're like, okay, well, they're doing that because Israel's going into Rafah. They're worried about Hamas fleeing out and everything else. But right now, it's starting to become abundantly clear, at least to me, that that is not the case. And remember, guys, Egypt joined BRICS last year. We look at this like Egypt's our friend. We give Egypt money and everything else. Egypt joined BRICS last year. BRICS. And today, of all of the people to come out and want to get involved, Russia did. Russia, finally, came out and warned the USA not to strike Iran. Because Iran and Russia have been buddies ever since Russia decided to invade Ukraine. Russia has provided Iran with S-300s, S-400s. You've got the defense minister that's gone over there several freaking times. You've got all that crap going on. And by Iran shutting off the shipping lanes inside of the Red Sea via its proxy force, the Houthis down in Yemen, by them doing that, it's forced all of the merchant traffic to go all the way around. So instead of all of these supplies going in and being able to go through the Suez Canal through Egypt, now you've got friends of Iran that are able to do that, who now, if so facto, are friends of Russia. It has significantly impacted, one, the EU and the amount of money and cost per items and everything else. So that's very important to understand this. The other day during the whole Signalgate freaking thing, when it got leaked via a security breach, that Donald Trump's plan is to reopen the shipping lanes in the Red Sea. That is going to impact the war over inside of Ukraine, period. It is going to allow more money to freaking freely flow back into the EU because you're not paying a 10 to 14x shipping cost because they have to travel all the way around freaking Africa. So that's our plan. But what's more so is we gave a warning to Iran and told them to stop funding the damn Houthis and to get them to stop shooting ballistic missiles at Israel and to get them to stop shooting merchant traffic traveling through the Red Sea. That figure that Trump stated the other day of an 80% drop in merchant traffic was absolutely real. And now we're going to be talking about all that crap. Israeli officials are pissed because Egypt is in violation of the peace deal. That's it. And Egypt's building up forces, and Israel, for the life of me, couldn't tell you why, hasn't ridden on Gaza yet. Hasn't actually gone in and started whooping on him yet. And it looks like, through the words that are coming out of these officials' mouths, that they're worried about Egypt. The USA, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be responsible for enforcing that. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Let's go back. Let's listen to this again. Keep going.
The Israelis are very clear in saying that Israel seeks to maintain the peace treaty and will not alter its deployment along the border. This official notes that the military activity in Sinai is expected to be restricted, but that is not the case. He says we'll not accept these breaches. And so this Israeli official tells us we are in discussions with Cairo and the Americans. He says the U.S. administration is responsible for upholding the peace treaty, and it is imperative to rectify these violations and ensure the agreement is fully adhered to. And the official therefore says we have raised these concerns with our colleagues in Washington. So we should say that these violations have begun over 10 years ago, of course, when Egypt was dealing with cells of Al-Qaeda and ISIS at the Sinai Peninsula. Israel until now has turned a blind eye to this military activity, but now we are hearing it clearly from this Israeli official saying Israel will no longer tolerate those violations.
Okay, cool. So here we are, back to 1967, right? That's where we're at now. That's where we're at today. And for those of you unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, it's not going to be a history class today. But that's basically where we're at today. Israel is finally pissed. And what he said, all right, about Egypt fighting ISIS in the Sinai Peninsula, dude, that's a very real thing. Egypt's been over there schwacking these ISIS fighters in the Sinai for a while now. Like, you can go find recent videos of them out there conducting raids in the Sinai. And so it was a very convenient excuse for all this stuff to be taking place, right? Like, Egypt has been responsible and has been doing a good job at keeping them down. You guys remember those videos of like, what the hell was it? ISIS, right? Back in the day when they're lined up with like the freaking med behind them, and they've got all those people lined up in orange jumpsuits and they're beheading them, right? All of that crap was taking place there in the Sinai, right? Like, that's where some of that stuff was coming out of. And so Egypt had been combating them and doing a very good job of it. Yeah, I'm wearing pants today. No need to pants check me, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you. No need to pants check me. But the USA, and I want to read this off to you. All right? Yeah, we have been building troops up over there for a while. We have. General Kurilla on his way over to Israel as we speak. Now, historically, as we've been watching this the last, 12 plus months, whenever the U.S. CENTCOM commander ends up making his way into Israel, there's always something coming out. Always. Something's about to happen. We don't know what it is, but something's about to go down. Over the weekend, check this out. Let me find it for you. Just had it. Make sure I get this up for you guys. Over the weekend, USA ended up deploying National Guard A-10 squadrons and 300 additional troops over into the Mideast. I'm going to get these numbers up for you because I think they're going to be important for you guys to hear. Currently over in the Red Sea, right, we have the Harry S. Truman. On its way over there right now is the Abraham Lincoln Strike Carrier Group, the Abraham Lincoln. Carl Vinson is going to be arriving soon. Again, we've got at least 6 B-2 Spirit bombers built up in Diego Garcia. We have B-1 Lancers that are now rumored to be going to Diego Garcia. And the frickin' A-10s and everybody else, not to mention everything else that we have deployed up over there to that region from before. So we are increasing our troop presence very frickin' quietly over there, and we're moving in some very strategic assets. When we talk about 6 to 8 B-2 bombers being over inside Diego Garcia, that's a big deal. The USA only purchased 21. One of them crashed a few years ago, and that one's out of commission. But you're talking like a massive chunk of our strategic air power that has been moved into that region. That's not something you even screw around with. The fact that we deployed that many should set off the red flags. The fact that we're going after, and I told you guys, Russia's freaking supply lines, and Russia's finally pissed off and telling the USA not to be bombing Iran, should be setting off more red flags. A-10s being deployed to the area. For you guys don't know, A-10 Warthogs are the bird. They're supposed to be tank killers, but we use them for close air support. Iran today came out with a new message, believe it or not. Let me grab this for you. I want to make sure I have it. Iran came out with new warnings as well. They ended up saying that like they are prepared, the rumor is that they're prepared with Shahed drones and some naval assets to attack Diego Garcia, and that they are considering a preemptive strike on Diego Garcia. Now, who do you think gave them the frickin' balls to make that statement yesterday? And then today, we end up getting the remarks coming out from frickin' Russia telling the USA not to be striking Iran. This isn't like a confirmation bias deal. This is like, here's the facts. In China today, I don't know if you guys saw what they're doing. They're straight up stacking outside of Taiwan. There's a buttload of freaking naval assets surrounding Taiwan right now. Yeah, what's Russia going to do? Very good question. What the hell are they going to do? We're going to keep going here in just a sec. Logan H., I appreciate you for gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Dora the Wholesome says, my heart goes out to the families if the M88 hurt crew. On a lighter note, it does not go out to the Tuscan Raiders in the Middle East who will FAFO soon. Yeah. For those of you guys that don't know, the 88 crew that was over inside of Lithuania, Trump came out last night and ended up saying that they have recovered the vehicle. They've recovered, I want to say it was 3 out of the 4 service members, and he confirmed that they had deceased, but the 4th one's still missing. They don't know where that service member's at. Brandon Cook came out giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Bill Hoekstra came out with 10, and Chosen Khan coming in saying, much love, bro. Much love, Chosen. What's up, Khan, brother? I'll reach out to you here in a bit, all right, man? Been a little bit busy. Sorry about that. These are the issues, man, across the Middle East. Whenever he gets there and whenever he leaves is when you really need to start being concerned. Once he leaves, that's where we're going to end up finding it. Here's your Egyptian tanks and stuff over inside the Sinai. I can't do the music. I really can't. Now, for those of you who are friends of history or who like history and you look into it, you will know that Israel did not wait around to bomb the crap and go after, maybe bomb the crap isn't the right term, but to preemptively attack in 67 because of these things. And again, those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. And right now we are repeating history and nobody gives a shit. They're all pretending like this stuff isn't happening. And it's like I said before, everybody assumed that Russia wasn't going to invade Ukraine because it hadn't been done. Like, it would be madness for Russia to invade Ukraine, yet there we are. And now we are seeing the exact same signs of all of this crap around the Middle East and the world. And people are, again, saying it's never going to happen. Don't worry about it. Fact is that we have a man in the White House that is willing to pull the trigger. Our defense secretary is chomping at the bit to make this happen. Our U.S. military is chomping at the bit to make this happen. Nathan, seems like war is going to happen with Russia, China, and Iran, going to happen with Russia, China, and Iran. Facts. Like, if things don't change the direction that they're on based on everything that I just threw out there, that war will happen. It's going to go down, and we're going to be bombing the crap out of frickin' Iran very, very soon. Date and time to be determined, not 100%. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. What I could tell you, though, is that these aircraft being moved into that area, in addition to the A-10s, in addition to an additional strike carrier group that's moving in there, we had one. Most countries only have one, like, aircraft carrier, if they have any. United States government has over 10. And we have 3 currently over, like, tasked for the Red Sea. One's going to replace another one. So we're going to increase. We're basically going to double our troop presence, if you will, in the Red Sea. And those things come with some huge packages. You want to talk about what's on a strike carrier group? For those of you guys that like don't know, let's talk about this. Because I don't think people understand what they come along with. You get the aircraft carrier, which is essentially like giant freaking piece of the pie, right? You also get a freaking carrier air wing. You've got strike fighter squadrons that go along with it. Electronic attack squadron. Carrier airborne eagle or early warning squadron. Helicopter maritime strike squadron. Helicopter sea combat squadron. Fleet logistical support squadron. You also have guided missile cruisers and guided missile destroyers. Obviously, you're going to have support and supply that goes along with that. But you also have amphibious assault. And we just moved 2 of those suckers in there. Like they're going to be there in the next couple of weeks here. In addition to B-1 Lancers, in addition to the B-2s, in addition to frickin' the A-10s, they're moving over there. And now Russia wants to FA and talk about it. And Egypt stacked up outside of Gaza. Why do you think all of this shit's happening? Like, can we seriously have an honest conversation for once? This is the administration that came out and said peace through strength. That's what they frickin' ran on, and that's what they're doing for the most part. I called them out the one time. I was like, that's not peace through strength. Correct. And I think they learned their lesson when it came to Russia. And now they're getting a very harsh lesson on Russia. And in my opinion, finally, somebody has explained this entire Middle East situation to them. It's freaking scary. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm worried about what's about to go down. I know the USA is going to do a very good job bombing the shit out of Iran. And I know the USA is going to do a very good job bombing the crap out of Yemen. No doubts there. But it's what's going to follow. I put this up this morning because it's true. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care. But it's true. Excuse me. Kurilla has landed inside Israel. So there you go. Kurilla has landed over inside Israel. This morning I said somewhere there is a timer ticking backward towards 0. It will not make an audible beep, but the world will still know when it hits 0000. Kenneth says, viewers, I wasn't lying last week. We have B-52s, A-10s. Oh yeah, I forgot about the B-52s that are over there. A-10s, F-35s, F-22s. Also an Ohio-class sub somewhere in the Med. Correct. That was one that I never even mentioned. The U.S. government doesn't announce the frickin' deployment of our nuclear subs. We don't. And you know they're over there. If we moved all that crap over there, you know those subs are over there too. And Kurilla's chilling in Israel right now. We have to back them up to support that peace deal. We have to. We're supposed to. We ran on it. So the question is what's going to happen next? I think Israel's delayed involvement over inside Gaza, because we've been sitting on this forever now. Like, Israel started to move inside Gaza, and then it was cease. We didn't get anything out of it. With the Egyptian troops stacked up over in the Sinai, right? With all of the military assets that are heading into the region right now. Supposed to be the first week to 2 weeks in April. Shouldn't take any longer than 2 weeks for that additional strike carrier group to get over into the AOR. Right? And it shouldn't take any more than 2 weeks for them to get there. First week, second week in April, they'll be there. They're freaking aircraft carriers, man. They don't teleport, but they're en route. And that whole thing that I talked about having all of our assets divided and being very, very deep over in the Middle East and being depleted and everything else is like Russia and China's big plan. Everybody's looking at what's taking place over in Taiwan right now. Let me show you guys this. Let me bring this up. This is 100% speculation. Just so you guys, like I had mentioned it fleetingly earlier, China is surrounding Taiwan. You guys see this, right? So we have Chinese warships that are surrounding Taiwan currently as we speak. And China has been the silent people in the back. And for people that do not understand this crap, China has also been supplying Russia in buying oil and shit like that off of them because the U.S. slapped massive sanctions on Russia after they invaded Ukraine. And we have a lot of our assets right now being tied up over in the Middle East. We have plenty that are going to be capable. Let me show you guys this. Here you go. This is the latest one for the U.S. fleet and Marine Tracker. And you take a look at this image of where it's at. This is where the Carl Vinson was at, and it's on its way up over here. Like I said, week, 2 weeks max, it'll be up over in there. Right? Guam is where it's heading out of. All of those freaking assets that are up over there, and again, Abraham Lincoln on its way. All of those assets that are being moved over there are going to start slowly taken away. Now, we still have plenty of stuff up here in the north, but they're all getting drawn away from that AOR. And so it's a very good chance if China was to do something stupid with Taiwan, because again, remember, nobody thought Russia would invade Ukraine either. And then it was like scenes from freaking D-Day all over, or, you know, like stuff that you haven't seen from World War II. And it certainly seems like all of those pieces are, like all of those ducks are starting in a row. Mickey Mike, Matt, do you think there's anything we should be worried about here at home once it goes down? Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I do. Kind says, if Iran does an early strike on Diego, expect one carrier group to be in the region. Diego holds on station B-52s, B-1s, B-2s, B-117s, and U-2s to respond to Southeast Asia and the Mideast. Expect a heavy response. That's the other thing that ended up coming out. Thanks for bringing up the freaking U-2 spy planes. Those things are really cool. Like, go look them up. They're freaking rad, right? Basically a damn astronaut. Go look up. We ended up having the U-2s move over there as well. That is correct. There will be a significant response. Svoliker, I think I said your name right. How does Australia, being roughly half of China's industrial input, factor in? I haven't heard anything coming out of Australia as it pertains to a lot of this stuff. So I feel like they're staying out of it, but I would expect Australia to frickin' throw down. You're talking about a country that was built on frickin' criminals, man. And I love Australia to death. Like the Aussies, man, they're like our boys. People don't realize how tight the USA and Australia actually are. If the UA is going to get involved, if the USA is going to get involved in this deal over inside the Middle East, you can bet Australia is going to throw down. How significant of a factor is it going to be? I'm not sure. And how is that going to, the Australian economy going to be used to affect China? 100%, not sure. That's a little bit outside my wheelhouse. I think I know the right people to be able to look into that though and get you a decent idea on what that'll look like. And if I have time, I'm going to take care of that today. There is just massive amounts of research to be able to like look at and put the big picture in what's kind of going on over there right now. And to me, this is that big picture. When we start talking about the big picture stuff of what's happening, there's a significant amount of freaking like impact that's going on over there. And it's important for us all to pay attention to it. Jangalang 23 coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, my friend. All right. Let's get back into it. I-24 came up, reported on the Egyptian troops as well, saying, according to Israel, that you have the Egyptian troops over in the Sinai are breaching the peace treaty, according to Israeli officials. And like I said, guerrillas on the ground over there. If you get into it and you start reading on this, it's actually really interesting. And that's, I think, part of it that really irks my soul is that we have all of these things that are out there, but nobody that's really putting them together and going, okay, well, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and this is happening, and the U.S. is doing this, 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 and this. And I could certainly say 1 + 1 does not equal 2, or 1 + 1 does equal 2, right? But right now, the U.S. government, yeah, we've been focusing on Israel. We've been talking about the Houthis down in Yemen, and we've been threatening Iran. But where's the U.S. government coming out and saying, Russia, mind your own damn business? We're really quick to talk smack on Iran. We're really quick to talk smack on everything. Where's the White House talking about the Chinese buildup over outside of Taiwan and threatening Taiwan and keeping them in check? All of that stuff, the U.S. government is maintaining a hell of a lot of silence over, right? But I think that those are very good questions that need to get asked. And we've got a defense secretary. I see somebody down there that says, we love Pete, and we love his tattoos. Yeah, check this out. Here's Pete getting his love from the troops right here.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Frickin' nuts. 0, 0, 0. Yeah, everybody's counting 0. It's the Air Force, man. Give them a break. At least they're doing PT. I said something to like take it to a lighter note real quick, just really quick, just to take it to a lighter note. So, Mr. Hegstath, if you end up seeing this, please, by all means, or Vice President Vance, if you end up seeing this, please, by all means, do this so that we can, I don't know, it would just be kind of a fun joke to play on the military. That would be fun for me, what I'm about to show you guys. I put this up the other day because I think it's funny and I just want to throw it out there. Everybody saw like JD Vance over there shooting weapons and stuff like that with the Marines the other day. Everybody saw all of that crap. I was talking to Nate Vance's cousin the other day, and I was like, hey, this is fun. This is funny. And Nate goes, you know what would have been even funnier that I'm going to give him crap for is not helping to clean weapon systems afterwards. You know that they left that shit and didn't have him do it because we got the VP over there that's frickin', shooting guns and doing oorah things. That's awesome that he did all that stuff, right? This is what I put. Good stuff, VP. Want to win all the military over? Next time you hit the range, set the standard high by helping police the brass and clean weapons. The enlisted will love you. The officers, on the other hand, probably won't. That shit's funny because they're all supposed to lead by example. And so if our vice president is policing up all of the brass and he's cleaning the frickin' weapons, not just eating chow in the chow hall, whoo, buddy. That's one hell of a standard to set for the United States military. Personally, I think it would be great. I think it'd be a good thing. If we're going to talk about what's supposed to be taking place, right, over inside of the Sinai Peninsula, right? If we're going to be talking about what's supposed to be taking place over inside the Sinai Peninsula, right, where Karilla is currently at, Karilla is currently over inside of Israel right now, talking to them. Inside the Sinai, right, in Zone C, Egyptian civilian police are permitted except in the coastal strip along the border of the Gaza Strip, so the Philadelphia corridor, where they're currently at, Philadelphia corridor. Gaza is Zone D. They are corresponding to a rectangle corridor of approximately 14 kilometers wide by 20 kilometers along the Med. And this area, designated force of Egyptian border guards, is present pursuant to an agreement between Egypt and Israel in September of 2005. In the years past, Egypt has also put over big tunnels underneath the Suez Canal that you can fit a lot of crap in, allegedly. They have extra airstrips that they ended up building up and extra air defense assets. Those airstrips and all of that crap, all of those troops can be moved very, very quick. And I have a feeling if the United States government actually just came out and said, look, Egypt, you got to take this crap and like pull it out, they'd be able to do it really, really quick. Now, what I want to do is I want to head into the Discord section. If you guys are a true supporter, great. Meet me over in the Discord. I want to head over to the Discord section and I want to, number one, take questions from the true supporters. And number two, I also kind of want to hear what some of y'all are thinking about this. Over here on this channel, we push critical thinking. I want to be able to present you guys with facts. I want you to do your own dang due diligence on it. And I want you to draw your own conclusion. I don't want you to take everything from me. I want you to figure out what's actually going on. So let's go to the Discord. Let's open it up and let's start taking some questions. You're going to be in the live with Matt section. That's what we're doing right now. I want to hear from you guys. Go ahead, raise your freaking hands, and let me start pulling you guys up into here. I got to turn this one thing on real quick so that we can do that. Make sure my camera's turned on so you all can see me over in the Discord. First hand's up. I'm going to go ahead and take it. BB wants to come in. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. If you're watching us on the Discord, welcome in. BB, sir, how are you today? What are your thoughts? BB.
There we go.
There you
Sorry,
go.
my mic was up for some reason. Yeah, it got deselected. Hope everyone's well. Yeah, I'm not much of a warmonger guy, but I saw the videos of the Iranian tunnels with all their missiles, and yeah, that has to go. That's not good.
Yeah.
However it goes, it needs to go. I'm not saying how, but yeah, you know, I'm not. Yeah, that can happen. And as far as the Houthis attacking ships and stuff, you know, I think it's 1.1 million per journey per ship. So that's obviously ridiculous. And the more ships that can go through, the better, the cheaper, the quicker.
Mm-hmm.
That helps everybody. So,
yeah.
You know, first step, the Houthis, second step, the Iranian missile silo, I guess, or whatever else.
So let's say we end up dropping those massive bunker busters on the Iranian nuclear facilities because Iran came out the other day and said, hey, we're not going to be building nuclear weapons. And the press was like, yay. But I'm like, they signed the NPT a long ass time ago and they're still doing it. So why aren't we listening to them now? Right? Do you think the U.S. government is actually going to do something? Like okay, let's put this. So BB, if we bomb Iran, number one, do you think Russia's going to do anything about it?
Not directly to the United States.
No?
I do feel that I do feel though that if that's the case, if we go and strike Iran, I think that opens the floodgate for Russia to then just go, I would just fucking bomb everything in Europe that we can. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's possible for them to do that. Like, I don't think it is unprobable. JS Mill SI says April and October past 2 seas are only time China can invade. April and October. Due to seas is the only time China can. Oh, he's talking about Taiwan. Yeah. The good thing about Taiwan, what I heard about, and I need to go double check it, is that you have this reef system basically that goes all the way around Taiwan. And that it basically funnels all of the warships and stuff like that to go up over into Taiwan. And so Taiwan's like defense systems and everything are already set up like over that, try to make sure it's the case. But it definitely looks like it might happen. Nate P, welcome.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so kind of the thing with Iran and Russia, I don't think the Russians are really serious about when they say don't bomb Iran. I mean, if you look through history and you look through the Cold War, about the only thing the Soviets, which is basically just the Russians, and the United States ever agreed upon is that we didn't want anyone else to have nuclear weapons. And I think they still feel that way. But they do have kind of a business deal with Iran, you know, with like the Shaheeds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, no, don't bomb those guys. But probably deep down, they're like, yeah, fucking hit those facilities because we don't want those assholes having nukes. It's my thought process.
Well, we say the U.S. government obviously doesn't want Iran having nukes, and neither does anybody over inside the Middle East. But why do you think currently with the amount of support that we're seeing between those two countries that Russia would not want Iran to have nukes? Because if Iran got nukes, it would keep the U.S. military very, very tied up for a very, very long period of time.
But Iran's also kind of ungovernable. Iran is also kind of ungovernable. I think they're kind of fair weather friends with the Iranians. You know what I mean? It's just it's a business relationship. They're not really friendly with them. That's just my take. I don't think the Russians want any of their neighbors being nuclear armed if they can avoid it. They like being the only ones with that ability to push people around and having the nuclear hammer. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the key thing there, right? Like that's the key statement is that when you have those nukes, then you can push people around, right? Like I think the only reasons the U.S. is friends with Pakistan, for example, is because they're a nuclear country, We wouldn't put up with all that
100%.
shit. They're freaking harboring Osama bin Laden. They've got like the freaking Taliban and Haqqanis. ISIS was pouring across their borders into Afghanistan, causing massive issues for the United States of America. And yet we just sat back and tolerated all that crap and still pretend to be friends with them. And so when Iran becomes a
100%.
nuclear state, and I think now it's not even if or when. I think Iran already is, based on the statements that came out of the Senate last week when they said it's only going to take 7 to freaking 2 weeks, 7 days to 2 weeks for them to have enough enriched uranium or to have a capable weapon. And I don't think you enrich uranium in 7 days and are able to put it inside of a warhead and be able to deploy it within 7 days. I just don't think that's how that works. I'm not a nuclear expert.
I know how the centrifuges work, and it takes a long time and a lot of resources to do that. You didn't go from 0 nuclear program to a functional one in 14 days.
Right.
So they've been doing this for a long time, and it's been building up. But I think the thing with Russia is they're like publicly coming out and saying, like I say all the time, what you see is not always what you get with politicians. So when they come out and they're like, no, please, no, don't knock out that nuclear facility. I don't think they really feel that way. I think they're probably like, no, take that thing out.
I don't know how long it took them, but how long did the Oppenheimer thing take to build?
Well, it took several years, and we invested more into that. Like if you look at like the amount of like GDP that we invested into the Manhattan project, it was the largest like single investment I think the U.S. government has ever made in terms of percentage of GDP. It's a massive amount of centrifuges, but essentially what you're doing with those centrifuges is you're separating the raw uranium into fissile material, like essentially one atom at a time. They have different atomic weights, and then they filter them through like little holes. I mean, I'm not a nuclear engineer, so this is all based off of like YouTube videos. So, I'm probably fucking some of it up, but essentially like the heavier isotopes go through one little sieve, hole in the sieve, and then the lighter isotopes go through another one, and you're literally separating them one atom at a time. And it's very time consuming. So what the US did to speed up the process was just build a ton of centrifuges. But there is no easy way to do it. It's not something that just happens easily, right?
They had started enriching uranium a long time. They put new frickin' centrifuges online last year, right? And they've been like enriching uranium this whole time. There's other undisclosed locations over inside of Iran that the IAEA just filed, the other day that said Iran was enriching uranium at multiple sites that they didn't disclose. So they're already in violation of the NPT or non-compliance. So within that alone, right, we've got a very good excuse to push their poo-poo in.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nate made a good point about, how you don't necessarily want your friends still having nukes, like Russia. USA is okay with UK and a couple of others having it, but Russia allowing Iran to have them and other people kind of gets a bit sketchy there.
Kind of a problem, right? Kind of a problem.
Yeah. It's one thing having like an ally, but when you're both enemies of your allied enemy, you know what I mean? Like that's the triangle of love, you know what I mean? The triangle of hate and love. That's the
well, and the Iranians are not like, they're not. I mean, they are a religious caliphate, if you think about it, right? So the normal logical things that, like, I say that the Russians and the Americans are very far apart when it comes to like their kind of philosophies and ideologies, but we're really close together when you compare us with somebody like the Iranian leadership right now, right? Like they're 400 years in the past in terms of how they think about their foreign policy. Or even further, right? So they're way different than the Russians and the Americans. Like the Russians and the Americans are closer together than the Iranians and the Russians, and philosophically.
So, Nate, I'm looking at everything that's going on between BRICS, Russia, China, Egypt, and all of these people that are like BRICS members are kind of acting up. Egypt building up over inside the Sinai, which is going to tie the USA and Israel down. China's literally surrounding Taiwan today. And the US moving all of these assets over within striking distance of Iran. And of course, we have like everything to do with Putin, Ukraine, Lithuania. By the way, somebody just made a comment here just a minute ago, and I want to appreciate them for it, about the missing US service member over inside of Lithuania. Dalius, ended up saying, latest news on the missing service member in Lithuania. It's not confirmed yet by Lithuanian authorities, but it seems they have found the last soldier. And Trump came out yesterday and said that 3 were dead and that 1 was still missing. So my question to you, kind of understanding that like Soviet mentality and that Soviet mindset, if we were to take that and we're to apply that to Ukraine and we're to take that and apply it to the EU, right, is if that happens, let's say the US bombs Iran and China decides to open up on Taiwan, right? And then Egypt and Israel get in a freaking gunfight over in the Sinai. Do you think Putin would capitalize on that and either strike the EU or launch a massive strike on Ukraine?
The only one of those options I would see that he would do would be to launch a massive strike on Ukraine, potentially. I don't think he wants to pick a fight with the EU. I mean, I know we pick on the EU and say that like as individual countries, their defense apparatus over the last 30 years or so has kind of, atrophied. But if you take the EU as a whole and you look at their air power compared to Russia's like air force, if the EU were actually able to get their shit together and work together, their collective air power would mop the goddamn floor with Russia's air power and fuck them up. And there are nuclear powers in the EU, independent of the United States, France, and the UK.
Correct.
I don't think they want that smoke personally, but I could see them capitalizing on the distraction of like America's ability to provide aid and taking advantage of that.
Do you think the Kremlin currently possesses the ability? Do you think that the Kremlin or the Russian military currently possesses the ability to launch another large-scale attack on Ukraine?
Conventionally, no, I don't.
I agree.
I mean, there's a reason Putin is conscripting 160,000 people, and that's not because you have a surplus of people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that whole conscription process will take months to get those guys drug out of their dachas in fucking Siberia or wherever the hell he's picking them up from. And then trained up, you know what I mean? And then delivered to the front and equipped and all that shit, which is also a problem the Russians are having, is providing equipment. So I don't think they're in a position, like I could see them doing like a bombing campaign or missile strikes or something like that, but I don't see them doing a ground campaign. I think they're really beat up and kind of stretched thin, more so than they're willing to admit publicly.
Yeah, I couldn't even see them doing, and I could be wrong here. I'd have to go back and double check, like troops available and stuff, and try to figure that out. But even, like when they invaded Ukraine, they did like a literal freaking, or attempted like a mass attack, over inside of Ukraine. They went all the way over. They dropped paratroopers off outside of Lviv, like a freaking couple squads of paratroopers outside of Lviv back then, So I'm wondering if they currently possess the ability to be able to do that.
No, there's so much air defense. I mean, like if you're going to do something like that, there's way too many fucking air defense systems in Ukraine to be throwing, cargo plane type fucking aircraft full of troops. They would just get smoked out of the sky in an instant. And the Ukrainians would see them coming from miles away.
Yeah.
They'd see them coming before they were ever even in Ukrainian airspace. So there's so many radar stations and, the ability to see that shit coming that's what I'm saying. There's ground troops. The only way Russia's going to be able to move ground troops into Ukraine is driving them over the fucking Eastern Front, maybe through Belarus, but that's pretty well defended up in the north. You never hear about it, but there's a reason the Russians aren't pushing that way, right? It's because there's shitloads of minefields and defensive fortifications.
What do you think?
I think with Russia, more of the same, but they could try it, but the goddamn losses they would suffer would be massive, and they know that.
What do you think about the 100,000 rumored troop buildup that Russia allegedly has over inside of Belarus? I wouldn't think they have 100,000 to freaking spare to throw up there.
That's one of those things that you hear about all the time. You know what I mean? Like that was a constant rumor. all the time is, oh, they're going to build up an attack from the north. They're going to build up an attack from the north. And it's like I said, there's a lot of defensive fortifications along the northern border between Ukraine and Belarus that is not really public because there's no fighting there. And there's a reason the Russians haven't tried that.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So they're probably looking at those defensive fortifications and just going, nah, it's fucking not worth it. You know what I mean? It's just, it'd be too costly.
Yeah.
So I think it's bullshit. The other thing is, like, you know, it doesn't matter how many troops you have. You know, if you don't have BMPs and BTRs and,
correct,
you know, T-series tanks to outfit them with, you can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, you can send guys with rifles into modern combat and rifles alone, and you're going to just lose a shitload of people. I mean, this is not the chosen reservoir.
Right.
Like, they'll just fucking die. So you got to be careful with that. I don't think the Russians are dumb. I've said that forever. I mean, I think there are dumb Russians, but I don't think as a people they're stupid people, right? They'll look at the situation and go, well, that's not going to work.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to see any like massive push, but what you could see is them taking advantage of the distraction and saying, we're going to do a bunch of, like, you know, large scale missile attacks, because the average media consuming public will look at those large scale missile attacks and say, oh, look, Russia's winning, you know, and they're really worthless.
They're just,
you know what I mean? Like, they don't accomplish anything. Yeah.
I call it throwing shit against the wall, see what sticks. You know?
And it's basically like a propaganda victory. You know what I mean? It looks impressive on TV to the average guy that doesn't know what the hell's going on, but in reality, it doesn't move the needle at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Brian, Mad Army Vet, what you got, brother? Appreciate you, Nate. Stick around, please, if you got the time.
Yeah.
I just agree with what everyone's saying right now. It makes all plausible sense. One thing I see about Iran is maybe Russia wouldn't mind them having a couple of nuclear weapons, just for the fact that they could use them in like a surprise type attack, or have it as like backup, versus them not having it at all. But that's just what I see.
What do you think the odds are that Russia snuck them? Serious question, Nate, because you're still here, or Brian, or anybody that's on the panel right now. What do you think the odds are that with all of the assets that got moved into Iran over the last like 12 months from Russia to Iran, what do you think the odds are that they snuck in a freaking nuclear warhead to give to the Iranian people?
Pretty good possibility.
I'd put it about 75%, to be honest.
The reason I bring it up is, so I will say the reason I asked that question is right around the time that Russia was sending in the 3 and 400s last year, the S3 and the S400s. I believe it was the Ayatollah that made the statement, but he said that they had a like new weapon or whatever, and that they would be happy to use it. It was around the time that Israel and Iran were going after it, after the consulate building ended up getting bombed by Israel. Iran came out and alluded to the fact that they had a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I remember that.
I personally think 0%. Like I said before, I mean, pretty much the only thing the Soviets and the U.S. ever agreed on, ever, was that we like being the only two guys with the biggest dick in the room. You know what I mean? So, like, and then I think, you know, Putin, for all of his flaws, I think, you know, he is intelligent enough to understand that nuclear war is an absolute loser, right? That everybody loses.
It would be a loser for Iran. Like, Iran would get blasted, but that's a way for Russia to stay out of it, and that's a way for the U.S. to throw a lot of assets to allow Russia to do whatever the hell they need to do. So while it's not like desirable or favorable, but
you got to understand too, with nuclear cores, like if you detonate a nuclear weapon, they know where that uranium came from, right? So if they give them a Russian nuclear weapon, yeah, they can detect where that uranium came from on Earth, and they know who made it. So if Iran detonates a nuclear weapon in Israel, for example, the entire world would know that Russia provided it to Iran.
What if, because Iran's spinning up the centrifuges and stuff, what if, like, is it possible? I don't know enough about nukes, man. It's not my specialty, like, by any means. But is it possible for them to provide them all of the freaking components and the instructions on how to throw it together and be like, just spin your own uranium, throw it inside this sucker and shoot it off?
I think the only thing the Russians would ever provide them with is potentially a delivery system. So when the Iranians were saying something like, "Oh, we have this new weapon," like remember when that weird missile hit Dnipro in Ukraine?
Yep.
And it was like the MIRVs all fucking. Well, that was like 800 meters from where I was sleeping when that happened. But
Okay.
and I was like, "Oh shit, Shaheds!" And then the next day, I was like, "No, that was fucking something different." All right, cool.
Right. And did we ever get an answer to that?
Yeah, we know what it was, and it was like an old Cold War ICBM, like mid-range ice. It's not an ICBM;
Okay.
it's a ballistic missile, but it's not designed to go like that, all the way across the Atlantic.
Yep.
And it does use MIRVs, and the concept there, and the reason they were saying, "Hey, look, it is really difficult to shoot down once those MIRVs are split from the like main unitary warhead."
Yeah, let me see if I can find a video of that while you're talking, because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, and the concept there and the threat to Europe was that, like, look, we can hit all your air bases with this, and you can't do anything about it, even with conventional MIRVs, right? The kinetic impact would be enough to destroy your airstrips and your hangars and all that shit. There's nothing really, you don't really have a defense for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the concept of arming them with nuclear MIRVs that's a jump in foreign policy for the Russians that I think people are overestimating their willingness to go nuclear. I think there are considerations that they would take, like if we started to, like, let's say America just finally, threw down the gauntlet and said, "Fuck it, we're sending, the fucking 10th Mountain Division to Ukraine, and we're going to smash everything and drive you back to St. Petersburg."
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they would consider it, right? Like when they see like an existential threat, that would be to do. Then they would consider it. But anything short of that, I don't think the Russians want any part of nuclear war. Like, they are pieces of shit, but I don't think they're that stupid. So I don't think they would be giving Iran. I just don't see it. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't see it.
I mean, me personally, I could see him doing some weird shit like that just because of the amount of like crookedness that Russia's been up to and how invested. It's like, desperate times call for desperate measures, some crap like that. But I mean, if they're going to be doing all of this wild stuff and they are so heavily invested, I mean, you're talking about 1 million casualties in the vicinity of, coming out of Russia. Putin's got a lot of things to answer for. And if, what the current administration, U.S. admin is doing is actually going to put a dent in that and knock Russia down, is it possible, for them to be able to do that? And
I mean, anything's possible, but I don't see them wanting a kind of religious zealot, fair weather friend to have, who's kind of unpredictable and ungovernable, having nuclear weapons, especially ones they provided, right? That could get them in a lot of trouble. So, and I think Russians, like, even though they won't admit it publicly, I think deep down they know they're in trouble anyway. Like, they know their economy's in bad shape, and they know that, their military's had the shit beat out of it for the last 3 years. And that kind of trouble is the kind of trouble you can't come back from, right? If there's a nuclear detonation anywhere, like, that's it, right? They're going to smash the fuck out of everything Russian everywhere, and they'll be bombed back to the Stone Age. Maybe not inside Russia, but like they won't be able to project any kind of power, any kind of influence outside their country for a generation after that.
No.
So I think they're smart enough to realize that and don't want it. So the concept of them giving, the Iranian caliphate a nuclear weapon, to me, I think is a bridge too far. Of course, like there's always the wild card, but I just don't.
Well, it's
possible, yes.
It's the
likely,
weird stuff.
no.
Like I don't know enough about it, but I know if there's a will, there's a way. And if they're worried about it and they're doing all this weird, shady crap over time, like, is it possible for them to frickin', is it possible for them to provide little things like, is it possible for them to provide little things like the components to build it? Because it's one thing to be able to have enough uranium. It's another thing to weaponize it and to be able to send it. And you got that, Iranian government that's like basically alluding that they frickin' have it. U.S. government's pissed off enough. And we're saying, hey, they're only a couple days out from having this thing ready to go last week. So now it's a weekend, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shit going on behind closed doors. I don't know, that we should and we shouldn't know, right? What's going on
I'd agree
in those meeting rooms, but it's fun to speculate about. But like my only contention is that the thought process that the Russians would assist, like there's the hardest part in making a nuclear weapon, from what I understand, is this is like a fission bomb, right? And then fusion bombs are just a fission bomb, compressing something. Like, so you have to make a fission bomb to make a fusion bomb, right? So it's all the same problems exist. But the most difficult part in that whole process is enriching the uranium. The way you detonate a fission bomb is you just surround it with fucking explosives and you squeeze it hard enough to where you basically split the core of the atoms.
You're essentially taking a detonation on each side and colliding them together. It really is what you're doing.
Correct. Yep. And it's not overly complex. I mean, I say it's not in concept, it's not that difficult, right? Yeah. And there's scientists. I mean, Iranians are not stupid people either, right? They fucking invented algebra. So, they're certainly intelligent enough to do that outside part of it. The aside from the enriching uranium, I think the one thing that Russia may have inadvertently kind of provided would be a delivery system and that tech, right? Guidance systems, multiple entry vehicle missiles and shit like that. And then not even thinking about it, thinking they could just destabilize the Middle East and keep America occupied over there. And then that they're getting close to being able to nuclear arm these things, they're like, oh shit.
That would be a mistake, on Russia's behalf. If they were able to provide if Russia provided a MIRV, for example, over to Iran, and then, Iran targets Israel with a MIRV, or the U.S., in somewhere, that would be a horrible, horrible thing. Like, let's say Diego Garcia gets hit with a MIRV, that would be bad. Like for Russia, that would be horrible.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, very that would
so
not
I don't
be good.
think they're that dumb. And that's the other thing that I think when it goes into providing them is once you give it to Iran, dude, there's no telling what the hell they're going to do with it. They're freaking nut jobs.
Correct. And and I think that's why the Russians would never give them like a nuke. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like directly give them a nuke, because they're like, what the fuck are these, religious psychos going to do with this? But I think, you got to take into consideration, there's been a whole exchange of like the shaheads and things like that during the Russo-Ukraine conflict. That you got to think they're giving them something in return for that.
Correct.
And if they're cash light, they may be giving them technology in exchange, and in lieu of money.
We know that we've been giving them like that Russia has been providing the aerial defense assets and things like that, but that's like small potatoes.
Yeah.
The real question is what have they been giving them behind the scenes? And a lot of people don't understand how like diplomatic things work and what goes around those aircraft and everything else. But there's things that they are allowed to do off the books that nobody gets to freaking know about. So.
Well, and the Russians are not exactly an above-the-board country anyway. So
no, and neither is Iran, and that's half the damn problem. Is you have two very crooked people, two very crooked administrations that are working together. One being Russia, one being Iran.
Yeah. So
and then throw China in the background of it.
Yeah, but that's where, like, when I hear Russia saying publicly, "Oh, don't bomb Iran," I think that might just be like noise for the Iranians to hear. Right? Like, no, we're telling them not to. I mean, but I think deep down, like maybe they don't even admit it in their internal meetings, but I think deep down they're like, "Come on, USA, send one of them GBUs right down the fucking stovepipe of that nuclear facility because we don't want these fucking guys having them."
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing. That's just it. Like, I think it would be a mistake, and I think how do I want to say this? I think even Iran knows that if. Like, I don't see how Iran's going to be going after Diego Garcia unless they have some random freaking naval asset that the U.S. isn't tracking, that they're going to be able to do it. If they were to, like, launch a freaking wave of shaheeds over there, right? Like, we would know.
Oh, my God.
And those things would get blasted out of the sky. Yeah. It's a waste of time. It would just be a waste. But what it would do is draw in a lot of U.S. military assets. And so if they do something like that, let's say they do let me put a map up on the screen for people. If they do something like that, if for some reason they do launch a massive freaking wave of shaheeds all the way down, because Diego Garcia is what, like all the way down here, right? Somewhere where it says Indian Ocean at the bottom of the screen, somewhere in that vicinity. If they were to do that,
Yeah.
and you have all of those drones going out, you could potentially draw assets and stuff away, if you timed it right, away from frickin' like Yemen, the Red Sea, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Iran can say that they're acting in self-defense in order to do it. And at the exact same time, they could do another ballistic missile strike over on Israel and another drone wave over on Israel. They could.
Theoretically, yes, but I think we've come up with some pretty ingenious ways to shoot down the Shaheeds with like a positive cost exchange ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know that, have you seen where they took like the 3.5 inch like Zuni rockets that, like the things from the rocket pods and put guidance systems on them so they can, and the cost is like 1/5 of what a Shahed costs.
Yeah.
So, now it's like, you can throw a bunch of like legacy 4th gen fighters up and shoot down all these Shaheeds.
I need to correct myself.
I
need to correct myself. I went so far south for Diego Garcia, it's not even funny. like thousands of kilometers south. So yeah, I put roughly on the screen where it's at without like looking. It's floating off there somewhere. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but that's, I think that like even now, like with those Shaheeds, I mean, like you said, it really wouldn't draw that many resources. I don't think. You could send up a few F-18s and they can load up like 90 of those goddamn 3.5 inch rockets apiece. And whereas before we were shooting them down with AIM-120s, which you can only carry like 4 or 5, right? And they cost millions of dollars a piece.
I was going to say, that's the thing, what people don't realize is when you have a couple hundred of those freaking drones that go out, aircraft can only carry so many freaking rockets and missiles in order to shoot shit down. And eventually they have to turn around and go back. So while we have those assets in order to do it, you know what I mean? You have to have enough.
You're going to make return trips.
Right. They're going to have to be going back and forth, and it's just going to be a race to get these suckers out the sky. Not to mention our naval assets and stuff will be firing at them.
Yeah, I gotta run here in a second. I gotta meet somebody, but I'll send you a link to a video of the new system that we're using, where we took those 3.5 inch rockets and how many of those aircraft can carry.
Oh wow!
And how cheap they are. So it's a really cool channel to follow too, because he does like a lot of air power shit. So if you don't know what you're talking about, that guy does, and then you can just quote him and regurgitate his stuff. Yeah, I'm not an air power guy. It's not my deal. So, but that's cool if that's new tech I didn't know about. So, well, I appreciate that, Nate. Yeah. But yeah, man. All right, man. I gotta run.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, I'm gonna take off myself as well. I just did a time check over here. I got some other things I need to be able to take care of. Do a quick around the clock because I know we let Nate kind of like dominate that space. So, Can Man, what's up?
I just wanted to say that it really all depends on how desperate Putin is, whether he'd give up nukes to Iran or anything. And I wonder how like the metrics would change if Iran said like, "Hey, if you bomb us, we're going to nuke Israel or nuke whoever we can." Kind of because mutually assured destruction, right? Like that's Ukraine gave up its nukes; it can't defend itself anymore, and now Iran can kind of claim the same thing.
Well, I think the mutually assured destruction part kind of like goes out the window when you start talking about like a country like Iran, right? Iran for sure would get the shit bombed out of it. You know what I mean? And we have enough assets over there right now to just destroy Iran. But for rational countries, right? For rational Western countries, mutually assured destruction kind of makes sense. When it goes down to radical Islamic ideology, who gives a shit about mutually assured destruction? Ask the people in Gaza right now. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. What you got? Death, you're hanging out over there silent.
Yeah. You just basically said what I was saying. Sorry.
Yeah, you're pretty digital over there, Death.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit better now. I know it kind of sucks when you get called up randomly. That happens to me all the time when you're sitting there waiting. So go ahead, give her another shot.
I was just saying, you basically just said what I had already was saying. Iran's just kind of a wild card. I don't think that they would want that.
Yeah, exactly. They're a wild card. I don't think they want it, but I also don't think they give a shit. Right? Because like really, if you're going to be inspiring the other people in the region, what better way to do that? Scuba, what's up, buddy? Scuba Greg, I see you down there.
Matty. How you doing, buddy?
Good, brother.
Good. I'm just driving through the Glacier National Park, so if you lose me, that's what's going on. But I got a little different standpoint on all that buildup that's going on over there at Diego Garcia.
Well, you weren't lying.
You guys are going to go after Iran, maybe. I can't see Trump wanting to lead the U.S. What's that, bud?
Oh, you cut out, but go ahead.
Oh, I might be losing you. Shit. Okay, I can't see Trump wanting to lead the U.S. into another war. Now, semantics are, I know it's not Trump that would be starting that war, but I can't see him wanting to start a war and have that go down. He's pretty anti-war. Like, he doesn't want to send troops in. And if you guys go in and level Iran, okay, Iran's taken out. Yeah,
Dang it,
you guys
Scuba.
could do that, but all
Scuba, you know I love you, man, but you're coming in broken and unreadable. You know I got love for you, Scuba. You are broken and unreadable, my friend. Let's try it again another time. I'm sorry. Like I think you have something intelligent to say. We just can't make out what the hell you're saying. I love talking to you though. Who did I miss? Brian? Closing thoughts.
Proxy forces, like all
Scuba, you are broken and unreadable, bud. You are
the bases.
Scuba, you are broken and unreadable. Brian, what you got? Sorry. Closing thoughts, Brian.
Okay. No, just as what I was saying. I mean, some of the points you brought up with how Iran can be very unpredictable, and how what would that look like in Russia's eyes if they did give them a nuclear weapon, and then with the mutual assured destruction, Iran doesn't care. They're martyrs then.
Right. Yep.
The only way we could really do it is, I could see the only way we could really put a hurt on them is if we go in and carpet bomb everything and not have to put the boots on the ground. And we can say, okay, we literally blew your country into smithereens. Do you want the next step?
Well, I think that's the answer regardless. I think regardless, if we go in and we bomb Iran, we've got to freaking just smash them. You know, if we're going to go in there, we have to go hard. There's no other option for going in. Like, if we're to legitimately bomb Iran, I think 100% that's what we're going to have to do. And Trump even
take a giant redwood and smack them versus a 2x4.
Yeah, and Trump straight up said it yesterday, and I think it was like a post he put over on Truth Social where he was like, "Look, like Houthis, you're about to find out. You think it hurts right now? No, we've got more stuff that's coming, but not just Yemen, also Iran." Like he specifically called them out again.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. BB, I think you're the last one, man.
No, nothing new from me, mate. Just hope everyone has a good day and stay blessed.
All right. That's really annoying. Sorry about that. Didn't realize I had my signal open up on this computer. I didn't, but it still rang through anyways. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Sorry about all that. But it has been a good time. Thank you guys for coming up on the panel and having that discussion today.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another live episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'll see you guys again tonight, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to start drop videos again. I've got a little bit more time on my hands, so I'm going to start dropping you guys some more videos as well. So videos on demand during the daytime as well. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Peace.